This special meeting of the budget hearing of the Township Council is called to order. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that adequate notice of this special meeting budget hearing of the Township Council of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, was made by the posting on the bulletin board at the municipal complex and transmitted to the officially designated newspapers. A list of dates annually indicating that this special meeting budget hearing would take place at the Franklin Township Municipal Complex at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, February 20th, 2018. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which is God, indivisible. Madam Clerk.
Here. Councilman Chase.
Here.
Councilwoman Francois. Councilman Gattari.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
Here.
Councilman Onijaka.
Yes.
Councilman Basad. Deputy Mayor Robertson.
Yes, here.
Councilman Vasanella.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, seeing no discussion. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. We are open to public. And for the viewing audience, I'll let them know there is no members here except for staff.
Seeing no members of the public looking to come forward, Mayor, a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, seeing no discussion. All in favor, closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. Mr. Vornlocker, the show is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think that we can get right to it here. The first department budget to be discussed is the Assessor's Office. Mr. Carabelli is here. If you have any questions for him, there's no request for an increase in staff in the Assessor's Office this year, and the OE budget for the Assessor's Office came in this year at $113,992, which is a decrease of $11,128 from the 2017 budget. A large portion of the assessor's budget is in professional consultant and specialized services, which primarily is the expert witnesses for tax appeal cases and the appraisers and that we utilize for those tax appeals. And there's actually a $10,000 decrease in that line this year from last year.
So if I remind council, if you look at the items in item number 5, there are 13 of them, 13 different departments to cover. So if we could keep questions to the budget or operational things directly related to the budget, that would be great. Council, any questions?
I believe Mr. Chase.
Oh, yes, sir.
I wanted to ask whether, in your professional opinion, you expect residential values to go down because of the federal tax bill's limitation on how much you can deduct for state and local taxes paid.
Dr. Chase, that opinion has been expressed by members of the real estate appraisal community, and I think it has yet to be tested. I think that, or not tested, but affirmed. I believe the limit is $10,000 for your primary residence. Most of the people in the areas where I work, outside, particularly outside of Franklin, they don't pay that much anyway. So I can't say that I know that for sure. The consensus is that there should be some impact, but it's yet to be proven.
Yeah, it's the sum of the property tax and the state income tax.
Yeah.
The property tax may not be that much, but when you put the two together,
We
I,
have-
I think what I hope is that if there is an effect, it will be rather slow to take effect.
I'm not really familiar with the state income tax portion, but I'm relatively familiar with the portion that deals with property tax, and I don't think that it would have a big impact on Franklin Homes. Again, we want the facts to prove themselves out, not to predict what might happen. But I think that, we're going to sit and wait and watch and see what impact, if any. The other thing that we're experiencing, and this is true in central New Jersey in general, is there has been some upward movement in values in the residential, with residential properties. So there may be some type of offset. It may slow that down. But again, we'll probably know better in a year or two.
Are there any budget questions for the assessor?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carabelli. Next up, at the tab right next to the assessor is collector, Carol Langone.
Thank you, Ms. Langone, for the work all of your people did at the end of the year. Much appreciated.
And much like Mr. Zelenik at the last budget hearing, this will be the last budget hearing for Mrs. Langone. End of the year, right? Is the plan June? Middle of the year. I knew that. I knew that. Middle of the year retirement. After it's now 27. 20. See, I knew that number. 27 years here with the Township of Franklin, collecting all of our residents and business owners' money from them. So, the collector's office is not requesting any additional staff. There are some additional items in their OE budget. If you look, the budget last year was $10,347. This year, there's a $1,288 increase to $11,635. The bulk of that is in two lines: 041 conferences and meetings. This is the money used by staff to attend the various collectors' conferences, and we now will have more than one person going. We have right now our deputy collector. Some Carol will still go to before she retires, but our deputy collector, and we also have an accounting clerk who's enrolled in the collector classes, so she'll also attend, and there's a possibility that she may move up. We'll see where things go once Carol leaves, but there's some opportunity for advancement, and so we have her enrolled in the collector's class. That's Tiffany, for those of you who know the people. And the other one is in other contractual items, line 029, and line 029 is, and I wanted to actually, so the P.O. box is included for those people who send their taxes and water bills in by mail, and then also the first class and standard permit 1265 for $450. That's
the Kilmer facility where we have the rest of the township mail. It used to be in another budget, but I guess it's going to be carried in mine now to make sure it gets paid on time.
So this is, the collector not only collects money, she makes sure things get paid too. And that's the collector budget. So if there are any questions. Okay, thank you. And so now I'm going to go a little, I'm going to change the batting order on you just a little bit, and I'm going to bring up Vincent Dominack for the economic development budget. He has another commitment later on this evening, but also our HR director is home with a fever and the flu. So I will handle her budget later when I do mine. So now we can go to economic development, which is, economic development was budgeted at $143,175 last year. It's budgeted at $135,675 for a decrease of $7,500. The bulk of this, obviously, is professional consultant and specialized services. This is where we pay for our economic development consultant and the ongoing economic development initiatives that we've undertaken. That's under 028. 029 is the money that the township budgets to fund the redevelopment agency. That actually went down this year. That's one of the decreases. We've reduced that from 30,000 to 20,000 this year. Mr. Healy, who will be here later for the planning budget, he will be here later at the table for the planning budget, has recommended that we decrease by $10,000 the contribution to redevelopment because there's satisfactory funds to cover this year's costs in the reserve fund for the redevelopment agency. So, any questions for economic development? Everybody's pretty familiar with what's going on with economic development. I didn't think there would be too many. Yes, ma'am.
Does this include like the branding, marketing stuff that we'll be doing?
It does, yes. That's in the professional consultant services. They're satisfied, so that money will cover the branding that we're about to explore with an RFP and all of the other initiatives that we plan on undertaking this year.
Okay.
Okay? Great, okay. Next up, Community Resources, Diane Leach-Thompson. There we go. Okay. Not to sound like a broken record, but Diane has not requested any additional staff, and Diane hasn't said anything to me about retirement, so that means at this point in the year, she's not allowed to, and she has to stay till the end of the year. She says no, that means I have her for another year. Good. Okay. So, flipping the page to our OE budget for community resources, there's a slight increase. Last year's budget was at $14,821. There's a request for an increase to $16,144. That's a $1,323 increase. As you see, if you look at the difference on the right-hand column, there's just a couple things that have gone up and a couple things that have gone down. Diane, the year-to-date on January 22nd had expended almost all of that budget, and that's to be expected. This is the budget for the typical running of an office, but also the programmatic expenses for the summer program that Diane runs for the youth in that particular part of town near her office. There's an increase of $500. A little joke here. So after 3 years of Diane coming to me and saying that she needed new chairs in her office, I finally convinced her that she actually really needed to put it in the budget if she wanted to buy them. So that $500 is for new chairs that are badly needed in her office. I don't know if there's any other questions. Actually, there is one here, 056, which is a new line item for her budget, and that is $340 in one line and $28 in another. And Diane, go ahead and tell them what those are for. Mm-hmm.
Okay. During the course of the years, I have to, if there's a fire in town, regardless of what time of day or night it is, I have to respond. There are also times when if we have flood or something like that, we have to respond. Either I respond, right now it's always been me. But in case of other issues in town, my staff will be trained in terms of Red Cross. So when I go to a fire, unless I know that officer that is there, directing traffic, they ask me, why am I here? So the purpose in the 056 is for our department to have vests that would actually have our name on it, and that was the cost when I went and investigated. That's the actual cost, and it would have the lettering and whatnot. So each one, the four of us in the department, each one would have a vest, but that vest is a department vest. It's not someone's personal vest, so if they leave, it stays in the department.
So to identify them at a scene of an emergency, which, and I don't know how many of you realize that community resources employees go out often for those types of things, and it's good to be able to identify them, but it's a safely reflective vest too. So when you have the fire department and the police department and first aid and all of those other things, and Diane and her office are part of emergency management and the local emergency planning committee, so it made sense that she outfit herself appropriately. So that's the cause for the increase in her budget. So.
Any questions? And so I have a question. Medical expenses including annual physicals?
That was an increase from Human Resource. They told me that amount went up.
I'm not so much interested in it increase. I don't understand. Are we giving annual physicals, or
Oh, that, I'm sorry.
what's it used for?
That goes for our summer staff. All of the teenagers have an exam.
All of the youth program-related costs are in Diane's budget as opposed to being spread out. In some cases, and I'll talk about the HR budget later, in HR are the regular employees and health, the physicals and things like that for new hires. But for the seasonal youth programs, it's budgeted in her own budget. Okay.
Else?
Okay, thank you,
I'm
Diane.
just curious, so you spend $500 a year for food? That's it? I'm looking at line 063, program
Foods and Supplies, $500.
What is that?
Yes.
Red Cross.
No, that's for the youth programs.
Yeah, but,
Youth programs.
yeah, for
It's for the
emergency.
summer.
Not for emergencies, that comes out of the police emergency
like
management.
snacks.
That's what I was
budget.
clarifying, I'm
No,
sorry.
yeah, this is just for
Shouldn't have
her
jumped the
youth
gun.
programs.
Oh, okay. Seems like a low number. I was curious.
She's pretty thrifty.
I know she is. They must be eating crackers.
And
drinking water.
She's pretty thrifty. Okay, anything else? Okay. Thank you, Diane. Next up will be Purchasing and General Services. Cindy Bellinger, where are you at? There you are. That's up towards the front of the book, right near the beginning.
Second last tab of the first row.
There you go. Okay, so here is your Purchasing and General Services Employee of the Year, and the only
You could
employee.
save us a lot of money by stop buying things.
She should, not letting us, the rest of us, buy things. And she buys nothing. She buys nothing but batteries now. So the Purchasing and General Services Administration budget includes the entire town's postage. It includes the entire town's copy paper. It includes certain contracts for copy machines. Not all the copy machines. Some are budgeted individually within their budgets. Not my copy machine is in my budget, but the shared copy room equipment is in that equipment repair and maintenance, and there's just your general conferences and meetings and professional association dues. Professional association dues are primarily those dues that we pay to our cooperative purchasing organizations, the Middlesex County Cooperative, the Morris County, so that we are able to purchase through them and don't have to go through the bid process for a lot of commodities, but there's a membership fee. That's where that's budgeted at. What we have done is made some adjustments this year. There's an increase of $3,500 in the equipment repair and maintenance. That's related to mail machine and postage meter costs that are budgeted in this budget, and there's a decrease of $1,000 in copy paper. We seem to be spending less on copy paper because I think that we're doing more without, paperless, and so I felt that we could comfortably decrease that by $1,000 this year. Oh, and the other thing, yes, you're absolutely right, and I knew that. And that $3,500 increase that's a 3-year contract, which we were able to reap a savings by going with a multi-year contract on the piece of equipment. So that $3,500 won't be a budgeted item next year and the year after. It'll be a 3-year contract. Thank you. I forgot. I'll do it. Councilman Chase, a question?
Sorry, Councilman.
That's okay.
Dr. Chase.
Does our copy paper have a recycled paper content? I'm asking from the point of view of sustainable Jersey.
So we had explored that one time before. The copy paper that we're currently purchasing, I do not believe has the green leaf on it that indicates that it's recycled material.
Okay.
Usually that we have trouble with it going through the machines. If we use recycled paper, it's a lot harder on some of the machines, which can cause more repair costs. There are a bunch of us, though, that recycle our paper. Like, after we use the front, we turn it over and use the back.
I do that myself. In fact, I almost never have to use fresh paper. Almost everything I print out is on the back of township paper.
Like township budget items.
Right. Okay. Any questions for Cindy? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along at a quick pace here. Fire prevention. I believe we have Mr. House and Mr. Berardo. Come on up. Their budget changes just a little bit from last year, and we'll have a little discussion about that.
Like fourth row, first.
Yes, it is. There we go. So, first off, in the salary and wage budget, you'll note that there is a new position listed at the bottom of the spreadsheet for Fire Prevention Officer 1. So, that position was formerly budgeted as a part-time position, and it is now a full-time position. And the balance of the costs related, all the employee costs in this case, including health care, pension, and withholdings, are part of a shared service agreement that council had on an agenda, I guess 2 meetings ago now, and it will be in front of the board of, the fire commissioners of Fire District Number 1, the end of this Monday, for adoption. What this, and you'll see there's also a reference to that in the OE budget. What that shared service agreement allows for is an increase in the staff to the full-time position, and in return for that increase, our fire prevention inspectors will be Monday through Friday in Fire District Number 1 only at this time, although it may expand. They will go to a firehouse and drive a piece of fire equipment to the fire when there's a call. So that it will be not only fighting the fires Monday through Friday alongside the available volunteers, but will also be the first response to the firehouse to get the engine to respond to the fire, or the alarm, or whatever else it might be. The fire district will also be funding other pieces of equipment, including a vehicle for this fire inspector to utilize. I think that, we've had discussions in Public Safety Committee about this. It was a kind of a good thing for the residents of the town, the business owners of the town, and a good utilization of resources, and I think a fair agreement between the fire district and the township. But that's where that comes from. So that is a fully funded position. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let me strike that. The portion of the budget that previously paid for the part-time employee will continue to be the responsibility of the township. All of the additional expenses, to include health care benefits, pension, and the additional salary, will be funded by the fire district. Exactly. And then we have their OE budget, and this is the first time in my, I guess, 5, 6 budgets, whatever I've done now, where I've seen a significant increase in the fire prevention budget. It was at $7,796, and then now it jumps up to $20,915 for a difference of $13,119. What I direct your attention to is line 056, which is the fire and other safety equipment. That $13,129 is in that line, a big number, and $12,629 of it is to be paid for. This is a money in, money out. We have it on the revenue side as part of the shared service agreement, and then we have it on the OE side. This is certain equipment that will be purchased by the township, but is being refunded by the fire district as part of the shared service agreement. So really, the budget is going up $490, and that's for printing and binding. I'll let John tell you what the increase for the $490 is.
Okay.
Printing and binding.
Just before I tell you that, I emailed this to you just before the meeting, so you all have our annual report. We do care about the environment, and that's why you didn't get it in paper form. The $490 is because we need to order 2 types of forms that we're running out of, and that is, one is the fire alarm activation reports that the fire departments fill out when there's an alarm at a business in order for us to take action, and the other forms are the insurance cards for the life insurance that we provide for the volunteers. Both of those forms we haven't had to print in, let's say, at least 10 years, but we've completely run out of our stock, or will during the course of 2018, so that's why we are requesting that.
So I realize it's not a large increase. I just, when you see something that hasn't been budgeted before, I'd like to just get what it is for. So that's what it's for.
Questions? So, I guess I'm not quibbling over the $400, but in general, and it wouldn't save anything or much if we just considered those forms, but forms in general, can we move more forms?
These aren't really forms. These are identification cards. So it's not something that they're filing with us. It's not. It's in the budget line for forms, but that's really not what they are.
The other thing, these forms we can't produce in-house. Fire prevention has been producing our own forms for almost everything. This is a 2-part NCR paper, one of them, and the other is a stock, like, index card that's printed. It's something that we can't do ourselves.
And then, just kind of for the general public, you touched on this. So if some agency were to give us $3 million for the first time ever, and we were to use it, our budget goes up $3 million, even though we're not.
So, right. So what, exactly. So if you get money from someplace else, in a shared service agreement, for instance, so it has to show on both sides of the ledger.
Right.
So just because, when it comes in, it's also expended, so you have to expend the money that comes in, because we're government and we don't make a profit. So our revenue can't exceed our appropriations, so that's why.
So our budget here went up, but the burden to the taxpayers, at least through the town, did not.
Absolutely, no, it's a wash. It's a $1 for dollar on either side of the ledger.
Now, to be fair, the taxpayers paying their fire tax.
So I won't offer an opinion on that. I don't know whether or not the fire district will be utilizing funds that in another way that they're not increasing their levy.
Right, but I didn't want to.
No, it doesn't come for free.
Right.
Nothing for free. It's nothing, exactly, there's nothing for free.
Well put.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Put my glasses back on.
Keep preventing fire.
Municipal Court, Kayla Martinez, where are you at? There she is. 2 more tabs. Help me out here. Oh, 2 more groups back, okay, tabs, I was looking for tabs. There it is, okay. So there's the court, and then there's another one that I would like to talk about tonight with Kayla next to me, and that's the public defender tab, so. Oh, it's in that same tab. It's under that same tab for municipal court, so we'll talk about all of it. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is the request for a new position in the municipal court. And it's really, it's not a new position as much as, well, no, it's a new position. So it is a new position, as I thought. We wavered on that one, so this one is a new position. Currently, the municipal court is staffed with a court administrator, Kayla Martinez, to my right, a deputy court administrator, Raquel Edwards is the deputy court administrator, and then we have two full-time violations clerk, and we have one part-time, well, actually 2 part-time positions within the municipal court. What this request is to make one of the part-time positions a full-time position. That's been the request. So so as much as I haven't let the department heads talk too much tonight, I'm gonna let Kayla talk a little bit about the changes that have taken place in our municipal court and all of the municipal courts in the state of New Jersey as a result of certain changes in the legislature that governs them. So you get to talk, Kayla. So talk about the things the hearings and the additional work that's involved in the Bail Reform Act and the things that have just taken place over the last year.
So bail reform happened January 1st of 2017, and with that came a lot more responsibilities for us. Everyone that gets arrested and a warrant is issued for their arrest has to go to jail and they'll see a judge within 48 hours. So we're constantly getting emails from the county, this person there's going to be a detention hearing, this person needs to be video conferenced, this person needs to be brought in. If there's a detention hearing, we got to wait to hear back from them. So it's like our emails we have to constantly be looking at our emails. So basically that part of the job, it's mostly myself and the deputy that handle it because it's very in-depth. So it takes away from all the other things that we have to do. And then our part-time positions, our part-timers don't last very long. They, within 6 months, they train, we send them to the classes they need to take, and they leave. They go to full-time positions. So aside from all this other, workload that we've taken on with this new bail reform, we're constantly training people, and they're leaving us. So, we desperately want a full-time position, so hopefully we can keep someone longer than 6 months.
Questions?
Mayor? Oh, okay. I mean, honestly, I have no clue. I mean, I have a clue, but I don't understand what the specific tasks each person's supposed to do, or how much, and says respectfully, you're being a little vague. I don't know what task the people here do. So what tasks are overwhelmed, which ones the new person would be doing, how much this new law affects it. I'm not, I hear what you're saying, I'm just not, we're not involved in the court the same way, obviously.
So I'll answer your question. So the differences now versus where they were. So all of the general duties of the municipal court, processing summonses, processing complaints, preparing of the court docket, all of that work is shared across the board by all of the employees. Now, because of the Bail Reform Act and the demand on both the administrator and the deputy administrator, I mean, it's the court. It's the things that the court does. I don't know how to explain it other than It processes motor vehicle violations, zoning violations, all of the things that a municipal court does. And now you've added on all of the detention hearings and all of the coordination and all of the paperwork that goes along with that now has to be done by the court administrator and the deputy court administrator, which means they're not assisting in all of those other normal day-to-day processes on a regular basis.
And just a quick example, I just thought of it. So a lot of these people, when they're released, they're put on pretrial monitoring, which means that aside from coming to court, they also have to report to the county every so often. So if they fail to appear to our court session, we got to get in contact with them and let them know. And then we have to schedule a hearing. So this person gets issued a bench warrant because they failed to appear. Now we need them to come in for a hearing to see if they're going to stay on pretrial monitoring or they're going to be increase their pretrial monitoring. So now they're coming in for something else aside from their original charge.
So has there been an increase then in the last few years of the amount of complaints, violations? I understand in general what
The
you're
law
saying.
went
I'm
into
just
effect
wondering-
January 1st of 2017. It's the first year that we've had an opportunity to evaluate the workload that's been created by it.
So the need, okay, because I'm hearing three things. I'm hearing the work we've been doing usual year to year. I'm hearing that the part-timers you trained are leaving, and I'm hearing that the new law is going to dump all this work.
No,
So
the
I'm
new
just trying to
law
assess.
did.
I'm just trying to assess. You kind of been ricocheting around, or which
It's all of those
I'm just
things.
trying to.
So so when you take into account every one of
So-
those things that you just said, that's why there are requests for
So-
additional personnel.
So I go back to my question. For the things that we normally do, like you said, the citations and processing, all that, I'm just curious in general, for the court, has there been an increase or a decrease in the last few years of how much those were, separate from any new laws? I'm just wondering if the court is busier than it used to be.
Are the cases up or down, I think?
The
is what you're
cases
saying.
for the most part are the same. It's just more work going into
Per case.
now.
So it's not like we're processing more people, more
It's more case
complaints.
management and more case scheduling.
Thank you, yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
And in addition, now that the state has enacted this law, it has created additional responsibilities for every arrest that didn't exist in the past.
So for every arrest, obviously it's going to be different for different types of arrests, or maybe not. How many person hours more does it take?
Yeah, you can't,
Okay.
not going to happen. It's kind of like asking a detective how many hours it took them to investigate a burglary. Well, sometimes it's 30 seconds and sometimes it's 30 days.
Okay.
Also, I mean, I realize it's budget hearing, but for purposes people may be watching, and my own curiosity, because like I say, the council, some people in the audience may not know, or in TV audience, there's nobody here right now from the public, but that we don't get involved, very little, from any day-to-day, or not that we get involved day-to-day managing in departments, but you know what I'm saying, we're
Actually, that's my job. That's
What?
managing the day-to-day.
Yeah, what I'm saying,
But in all honesty, in this particular
So-
application, not only are you right, but you're right beyond being right, because it's the judicial branch, and we don't get involved with
That's
that.
what I'm
That's what you're trying to
point
say.
out, that it's a judicial branch, so we shouldn't beat that familiar.
Exactly, exactly.
And,
It's kind of a hands-off thing.
and
for all of
also
us.
people in the public who might be thinking there's an increase in complaints or arrest or all, and that. So it's not really an increase, it's because of new laws.
Yeah.
It takes more time,
And
hours to manage that, what is just the normal caseload. It's not like there's a big increase or decrease. It's just more red tape, so to speak, and some of it may be good, because from what I understand, what I had read, that the bail reform and the criminal justice reforms are much needed, and hopefully some of them are going to benefit the public, who at all times may come through our court system for whatever reason, big or small. So
Okay.
I'm okay, just want a little further understanding.
And now, along these lines, before we get to the OE budget, if you could flip to the last two pages, actually the last page of that section of court, that's the public defender. There's just something that I'm going to draw attention to right now. It'll be the very last tab under court. The last page, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong terminology. The last page, which is public defender, under the court tab. That's what I'm trying to say. As you see, that's budgeted at $18,000.
Now budgeted at zero?
No, it's budgeted at $18,000. Other contractual items, $18,000. Department request, $18,000, calendar year 2018.
But the difference between 18 versus 17 is
Yeah,
minus 18,000.
and so, yeah, I understand, and that's a formula error that the finance officer can answer for.
Okay.
It's just a formula error. It's budgeted the same amount. I know, and I wasn't even looking at the right column. It was budgeted at 18,000 in 2017. I'm going to date myself there, 1917. And it's budgeted at 18,000. Currently, it's budgeted at 18,000 in 2018. I just want to have a quick discussion about this. One, we pay the public defender more than $18,000. The balance of the salary of the public defender comes from public defender fees that we collect from each indigent defendant, $200 per matter at maximum when the public defender is assigned. That makes up the difference between the 18,000 and the 21.5 or so that is the cost of the public defender annually. The public defender came to see me on Friday and to discuss an additional directive from the Administrative Office of the Courts dealing with public defenders and matters where a defendant has been arrested for a domestic violence, disorderly persons offense, so a municipal court charge, where they were deemed qualified for the public defender and have been detained after a detention hearing. The courts have now directed that even though the detention hearing is held at the Superior Court level in Somerville and that it is a Superior Court judge that issues the detention order and it is the State Appellate Division that hears any appeals of that detention order, that the State Office of the Public Defender will no longer be defending those defendants, and the municipal public defender has to do all of that work because there is only 7 days that a defendant has to file an appeal on a detention order to the appellate division. So the appeal and brief has to be prepared and filed with the appellate division within 7 days. The public defender has indicated to me that that's far beyond the scope of his position currently and the salary that we pay him, and that it's also beyond the scope of his law practice to provide that service to indigent defendants in these particular, and it's only a small window, but this particular circumstance. So right now, this got sprung on me on Friday. It got sprung on him only a couple days before that. A couple days, and same with our court. I've consulted with the township attorney about, and we have, Kayla is researching the number of cases that we handled that would meet the criteria last year so I can do some kind of comparison. But I just wanted to let you know that you may see an increase in that line of the budget by the time we introduce, because I have to account for paying an attorney extra. This really does equate to an unfunded mandate from the state. There's no other words for it than that. The State Office of the Public Defender is a state-funded office that is responsible for all public defender matters in the county, in the superior and appellate courts. But for some reason, I think what happened was the State Office of the Public Defender complained to the Administrative Office of the Courts about an overload of 7-day detention hearing appeals, and someone felt that it was more appropriate to kick it back to the municipal prosecutors. It defies any good explanation. It defies, but the bottom line is we got an order that I have to deal with now. So once I get a better handle on how much it is and how many cases that would have met the criteria last year, I may have to increase that number. And that's an ongoing thing right now. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I didn't actually talk about her OE budget yet, Mr. Mayor, and it's a real simple one.
Hang on, are there questions on that issue?
Questions on the public defender? Yes.
Without delving too much if it is, because it could affect future budgets, there's one of these quote unfunded mandates. I believe a municipality can start the process by which it goes to that review board that judges if it is a unfunded mandate, and over the last several years, there have been a couple that have actually been either knocked down or then funded. So
So
I'd like us to initiate
I
that
had a
process.
conversation with the township attorney this afternoon about it. That's
Okay.
why I had to
On
hang up.
that?
So, yeah, that's why I had to hang up the phone with you, so I could talk to him.
Coincidence, there was a good reason that I
There you
said,
go.
call me
So when
back.
I said that's the township attorney and I really need to speak with him, I apologized and hung up the phone with you, and I talked to him about this.
Oh.
And when he's going to do the legal research and see where it goes as far as that's concerned, with some people he might know in the legislature. I don't know, he might know somebody, one or two people. So,
Yes, sir. Okay.
I was going to ask about the same thing. I mean, I know there is some way that municipalities can appeal unfunded mandates.
and that's what Lou is
pursue it,
specifically looking
yeah.
into for me now.
But of course,
So-
it might be complicated. There might be a theory that, well, if the courts order it, you can't, but.
Well, apparently
We'll
the
look.
assembly has a committee, and our township attorney knows the chair of that committee very well.
Okay.
Now, there's a separate council for unfunded mandates.
There's a
It's not
civilian.
just going to the legislature.
So, okay.
Okay, the attorney has that well in hand, if you could go
Yes.
to the OE budget.
So the OE budget is actually got some adjustments to prior year 25,750, now 25,850 for a decrease of a whopping $100. So, I'm sorry, an increase. I take that back. An increase of $100, not a decrease. The parentheses mean it goes down, right? Yeah. So now I can say, are there any questions? Okay.
All right,
Yes. Will.
for going back to the public defendant, you said that the public defender may not be able to handle the cases, so that would mean.
No, he said he will not be able to handle the
Okay,
cases.
so that means
So
we
what,
can
so
get that
we're presently exploring this, but what the letter that our public defender received from the administrative offices of the court said was that in these particular matters, in these very narrowly defined matters, an alternate public defender could be utilized, and the public defender indicated to me that he knew of an attorney who was willing to do these matters and these matters alone, so that if there was funding that was included in the budget, it would be solely for that purpose. We would basically refer to it as the bail public defender, or, you know, the detention public defender, or something along those lines.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Caleb.
Hang on. The last man standing.
Planning, the planner. Mr. Healy, come forward. So there's a couple different budgets here that we'll talk about with Mr. Healy. I got to start from the beginning again. Oh, there it is. Okay. First order of business is the salary budget. Mr. Healy has not requested any additional personnel for the 2018 budget year. And then we have, the first is labeled Planning Board. That's your first OE budget. There is no change to the Planning Board budget from 2017 to 2018. It was at $85,800, and it remains at $85,800. I believe that there's $40,000 of this budget is for the Planning Board and Board of Adjustment attorneys, and $40,000 of this budget is for professional consultant and specialized services. In particular, we're utilizing we're utilizing an outside consultant for the transportation element of our master plan update. That's been discussed. It was actually discussed last year as well. So this is now, I believe we've awarded the contract. We've now awarded the contract. That was on an agenda, I guess, about a month ago. And so that we all determined that that was a very important part of our update to the master plan this year. So, Planning Board. Board of Adjustment budget. Any questions?
Mr. Chase?
How can we be spending $10,000 less on legal representation when we've been using the full 50,000?
Actually, I thought that question might come up, so I looked at what we actually expended versus what was encumbered. The 50,000 that you see was, or 49 and change, that was the amount that was actually encumbered by purchase orders. The amount that was actually spent was about 32,000. So I feel comfortable that the 40,000 request will satisfy for next year, for 2018.
That confuses me.
All right, so I'll explain it in ways that hopefully everyone will understand. In the beginning of the budget year, once we adopt the budget, we encumber in certain lines of the budget all of the money. So, like for the township attorney, you know, so legal contracts, generally contracts, you encumber all of the money, and then you charge off of vouchers through the year. Sometimes you spend all of it, sometimes you don't.
That part I get.
Yeah. So what part don't you get?
He said that there were purchase orders,
Yes.
amount of
$50,000. Right.
$49,552.90.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't, so there's a word. Remember that thing when you first became a councilman that you didn't understand why we bought so many blankets? Okay, so we don't buy blankets, but we do blanket purchase orders. A blanket purchase order is intended to cover that for the entire year as opposed to doing individual purchase orders monthly. A purchase order, the process of a purchase order costs us about $100. So rather than do $1,200 worth of purchase orders, we do $100 worth of purchase orders and pay them off of vouchers through the course of the year.
So I assume this is the way you have to do the bookkeeping? I mean,
It also helps keep when you know you're going to have a big expense, it holds that money that you don't get to the end of the year and think you have it left over, but meanwhile you haven't encumbered it. So it's a better way to manage your budget. The first year I started here, there was one department that was over budget, nearly $80,000, because they hadn't encumbered the money for some major expenses. So it's a better way to manage your expenses to make sure you have enough money for those contracts you've already put in place. We don't immediately cancel the blankets in January because, especially with legal bills, you're still getting straggling legal bills. So at the point the budget was printed, we haven't canceled that purchase order.
Okay.
We may still have legal bills that are coming in.
now I see why you do it. And to explain what Mr. Vornlocker was saying about blankets, the first time I looked at the warrants, I kept seeing blanket order, blanket order, blanket order. We're buying thousands and thousands of blankets, and I had no idea why.
We were very warm. Warm.
I called and said, why blank, are we buying so many blankets?
So I guess the funny thing recently is that we had a purchase order to purchase blankets, because as you recall from the discussion with the police department and emergency management, we purchased blankets. So we didn't use a blanket purchase order for it, we used a plain one. Okay. So, all right, now that we had that laugh, let's just, within the same tab, paging through the next, oh no, I lied. I take that back. I thought they were all together. The next one would be the historic tab and help.
In the back,
Commissions. It's under commissions.
which is the second to last row, third tab.
Got it. Now I find it. Okay. Next commission is the Environmental Commission. The Environmental Commission budgeted $1,200 last year and budgeted $1,200 this year. This is for the annual membership in the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, and also for various, and I say various because the various things that the Environmental Commission does for public presentations, for, like the councilman said, plaques, but also in the event that the Environmental Commission wanted to bring someone in to a paid person to come do a discussion at a public forum. Their money is there for them to use for that purpose. Obviously, it's a small amount of money for a number of people who do things on a volunteer basis if they wanted, all for good stuff. So that's the Environmental Commission. The next one, I think, will be under there, and that's the Historic Commission. And that was budgeted, and I love the numbers, Mark, and I often wondered. It's $2,899. It's not $2,900. It's not it's $2,899, and it was $2,899 last year, and it's $2,899 this year. It just says, so there you go. It just says various. So I think that the reason why we put money in the Historic Commission budget is in the event that we need an expert on an application that goes in front of the Historic Commission.
Well, it's also that members have to take some sort of course from time to time.
Yeah,
And while they minimize the cost, there is some.
This amount came from the Historic Commission a few years ago. The then chairman put together a list of, it's mostly for educational requirements. We're anticipating that the state will finally give the Historic Commission certified local government status, and there are certain education class requirements that are associated with that. And he put together kind of a pretty detailed list a few years ago of what the requirements would be. So that's what it's based on.
We haven't got.
Waiting for certified local government status is like waiting for Godot.
I hated that play.
And Mayor?
That was a very high-level
Just,
comment.
and I assume you're talking about Tom Gale?
He's the gentleman who put it together at the time.
Right. No, I just wanted to acknowledge it because I remember, because some of them were trying to take courses, and it worked out really well, and a little bit of this investment, anything for educational, from what I understand, really has turned out to be a win-win for the town. And I know Tom's not with us any longer, as far as a chairman, he's still here in town. But I want to appreciate what he did, because that's doing a lot for the town with spending very little money as far as the education of some of these commission members. Thank you.
And the last one, and this is not actually Mr. Healy's responsibility, but mine, and it's the Shade Tree Commission, and there's $250. That's their annual membership in the New Jersey Shade Tree Association, of which we are a member.
Well spent.
Any other questions for Mr. Healy? Okay. All right, now, jumping way to the beginning, the manager budget is right in the beginning of the book. It's like the third or fourth tab. Salary wage summary is the same as it was, so there's no additional employees in the manager's salary budget. The second page is the township manager's general budget. It shows an increase of $250. There was a $200 decrease in education and training and a $450 increase in conferences and meetings. Some of this budget, so my budget is not just me and my assistant, it's also the special projects manager, actually the economic development director is under my office as well as the part-time employee. And there was an increase in the, I increased the conferences and meetings to cover the costs associated with the League of Municipalities for the special projects manager and me, as opposed to in the past just me. So it's certainly of benefit for her to attend that, and that's why the increase. And the decrease in education and training is just a minor adjustment to the budget. So any questions about the township manager budget? Not very exciting, I realize.
Our contingency stays at 240.
Yes. Okay. Now we'll do the township clerk and related budgets. Yeah, we'll get, so we'll do HR. I was reminded that we haven't done HR, so it comes after purchasing, which is sort of kind of helping me. I think it's in the beginning, right? There it is. It's like all the way over to the left tab there. No changes in the salary budget for this year for the HR department. There is an increase of actually $29,711 in the proposed budget for human resources. That's an increase from $92,920 up to $122,631. The bulk of that is in two lines: medical expenses, including annual physicals, and that's $15,000, and a $14,486 increase in education and training. The education and training, as I think all of you are aware, is the increase in training that was proposed related to the customer service training that we're going to provide to all of our civilian staff. That actually is next month, the beginning of next month, that is taking place. And the increase in medical expenses, including annual physicals, it's really not annual. It's increase in medical expenses related to physicals. As you've heard me mention already, there's 2 employees that are retiring. There's more than that have indicated throughout the workforce this year. There's a number of police officers who indicated that they are taking steps towards retirement in this calendar year, and other members of the non-managerial staff that have indicated that they're going to retire as well. So we've budgeted additional money in that line this year for replacements to have physicals, and in certain cases, physicals and psychological exams. There's also money now budgeted in that line to allow for us to run an entrance exam, not the exam, but the physical part of the entrance exam for the police department that we've discussed. So that's the increases in the HR budget.
Questions? So I'm just looking back at salary. How many members? How many employees are in water versus that we have not in water?
I wish you would have asked me that question. I know you didn't think of it until just now. Without looking at this big giant spreadsheet, which is in the front of my book here, I'm going to say full-time employees is about 18 full-time employees in water, okay, and off the top of my head, I don't know the number of full-time employees. I mean, but there's also part-time employees, there's seasonal employees, there's, yeah.
You can answer this offline. I didn't
Okay.
realize it was. You often have these things at the top of your head. I didn't realize.
No, you know what, and because the number changes based on the time of year, I stopped trying to memorize how many people we have working. One time I said that we had 300 people, and I had my HR director look at me with the twisted look in our face because it was far in excess of that at that particular time due to the seasonal employees in the recreation department in the summer. We almost double in size when you talk about that, so, okay. The next tab is clerk. So, there are no requests for additional personnel in the clerk's office at this time. So I'm just going to go to the different covers. So there's different budgets within the clerk tab. The first one that you come to is the mayor and council budget. This pays for a number of different things related to all of you, conference costs and anything that needs to, your business cards, things that need to be printed, what have you. It was at $23,794 last year, and it's being reduced by $3,395 this year to $20,399. So the biggest reason, right? So the biggest reason for that is that previous years, because there was no other place to budget it, the membership in the Somerset Business Partnership was budgeted in the mayor and council line. Since we now have an economic development office, it seemed appropriate to move the business partnership membership fee to their budget. So that's primarily the most significant. Well, that is the most significant reduction in that budget. The next one is the clerk budget.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, nope, go ahead.
It's all within the same tab. Next one, just as you page through, is clerk, budgeted in 2017 at $40,460, budgeted this year at $40,085 for a decrease of $375. You can see that there's been various adjustments in different lines to accommodate different needs, but the overall is down by $375. Okay.
Mr. Manager, do you
Yes.
need to update for the council list? Swap out a council member's name? I'm just asking.
On the salary budget?
Yeah.
If it still has Roz, it's just because she was my favorite councilman.
I know, I'm on the low end of the poll right now.
I thought that was updated, but the bottom line is, as long as the pay is right there, you're okay.
Councilman, you didn't get the memo?
I finally set up the voicemail. I changed the message from Roz's name, so,
So I guess that means we need to include you in the salary budget now? Have you gotten a paycheck?
I did.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you
then
very
that's all that really matters. No,
No,
we'll have the adjustment made. No,
I
you're
sort of
absolutely
actually assumed that it was probably for the comparisons to the year before, so.
right. We take the same salary budget and just reuse them from year to year and make the adjustments, so I'm sure that was just an oversight.
That's fine.
Okay, township clerk budget then, we've completed that one, and then the last one will be elections, and I just have to page through here and get to it. Elections, budgeted at $29,500 last year and budgeted at $29,500 this year. Obviously, the biggest cost in this budget is the sample ballots.
Are we likely to have any expenses for keeping the Russians out?
Who got him caught? Who riled up Councilman Chase tonight?
My guess is that would be at the.
Well, there's all this concern about Russian hacking of our election system.
I would think that would be at the county level, that would, for the vulnerability.
Yeah,
would be.
probably,
Okay.
unless they choose
wait.
to unfund a mandate.
So first, I'm having trouble finding the tab. But
It's the clerk tab. It's all under the clerk tab. It's just the last thing in the clerk pages.
I got,
Far right tab, right in the beginning of the book.
yeah, I only have 2 pages under the clerk.
Oh, you're missing a page?
Yeah, so.
29,000 for elections last year and 29 this year.
And you're saying that's all for sample ballots, but what about for paying for?
I didn't say all. I said that's the bulk of it.
And that includes paying for the venues?
I'll break it down for you because you're not here. Yeah, $3,500 for the lease at the Armory. That's all we pay. That's the only one we pay.
Oh.
All the rest are, so the
Darapad.
county pays for polling locations. We have to pay extra for the Armory. So we budget $3,500 annually for the use of the Armory for a polling location.
Because they charge so much so that.
Because it's over what the county will pay.
Okay, and the county pays the actual.
Poll workers, yes.
Okay.
So we pay, printing and binding is budgeted at $26,000 of the $29,500. $3,500 is budgeted for the Armory, and we're done.
Okay. Now I
Will
have
the
it.
county pay us for using Consolata as a polling place?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't believe they pay us for the senior center, so I don't know why they would pay us for the Consolata building. Well, no, you know what, the Consolata building won't be owned by us. So, it'd be an interesting conversation to have with the election officials. I think maybe we know one of them, too. So,
We know one of them.
we do.
And
He
we
used to take up space here in this room.
And we also know the clerk.
We do. So, next is finance. The finance, there's no change in the salary and wage line for the one employee that we fund through salary in the finance department. Jumping over to the next page, as you see, the overwhelming majority of that $324,316 budget is the professional consultant and specialized services line. This is, as you all know, the staffing and financial. Oh, speaking of the devil, it's Hodgelick and Morrison, and he's just arrived. So there he is. So that is the bulk of that budget, and the rest is just the small amounts of money that are necessary to run an office every year. So the very last page in this, so now we get into those all other lines of OE, so put your seatbelts on. I'm going to try to get through these without much fanfare, because most of them are things that we are just required to do. The annual audit fees are budgeted at $39,900, and we have Phoenix Advisors that will do the annual SEC EMA disclosures and compliance for $950 for a total of $40,850. Like to keep the Securities and Exchange Commission happy, so we make sure that we get those filed by professionals. Okay. So that is that. And now we have to go to, we're going to have to jump around. Do you have a list that you can work off of? All right, so we're going to go through this. So the next one, if you look at your tabs, the next one is legal that we're going to go to.
Yep.
Okay. So legal services for the Township of Franklin was budgeted at $535,000 last year, and it is once again budgeted at $535,000. This is for the legal services of our township attorney and our tax appeal attorney. The township attorney budgeted at $300,000 not to exceed, and the tax appeal attorney budgeted at $235,000 not to exceed. Okay. So the next is, if you see insurance tab, it's about 5 tabs moving through the book. The liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance is the first page. It was budgeted at $1,158,161 for the total on insurance and surety bonds and workers' compensation insurance in 2017, and it is budgeted at $1,158,161 this year for no increase. So there's a 0 increase on that insurance. Flipping the page. The next, under insurance is general health insurance. In 2017, it was budgeted at $7,001,781. And this year, it will be budgeted at $7,031,511 for an increase of $29,730. Which is offset, right? That's right. Oh, so there you go. So I forgot about that part. This is where we were talking about earlier. Money in, money out kind of deal. The $29,730 increase is the amount of money that we will be compensated in the shared service agreement with Fire District Number 1. So in essence, our health care benefits for 2018 are a $0 increase over 2017 on our premiums for all of our health care. Healthcare employee copay, optical, disability, and flexible spending. Any questions on insurance?
Gee, I always thought health insurance was always going up.
So we and it generally speaking is going up. We did a full for this budget year back in the fall of 2017. Our broker put us out to market and was able to negotiate with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield to keep us flat. A big part of that, and this is not to pat myself on the back, but I was certainly driven to do this by certain people that are in front of me right now. We've now opened up our healthcare benefits, all of our different plans to all of our employees instead of being union-specific for certain plans. We've offered them different prescription plans that give them an opportunity to sign up for a prescription plan that will also save them money if they're so inclined. And we've made it purely voluntary and optional for each individual employee, and we've also opened it up from 3 plans to 5 with some more affordable plans. And we have had employees enroll in those lower cost plans, both prescription and medical. And so as a result of that, our loss ratio has improved, and because of that, Horizon agreed to keep us at the same premium that they were at last year.
Very good.
So, okay, so next is volunteer organizations. The tab is all the way on the left of your book as you look at it sideways. That's the aid to, so the first line of that is the insurance and surety bonds. So that was the insurance thing that the insurance policy that John House was speaking about earlier. The insurance that's provided to our volunteer firefighters. We provide in state aid to fire district, state aid is $16,674, and as you can see, this is just one of those things that nearly all of the money is spent annually, and we've had just continued to repeat the amounts from year to year. First aid contribution is at $58,500 with the insurance and surety bonds at $6,500. So that line has not changed since, I guess, 2016. It went up $5,000, and it's held 17 to 18 on the amount that is contributed to the volunteer first aid squads that serve the town. That money is divided up by the various volunteer first aid squads based on a ratio of the number of calls that they handle versus the number of calls total in the township. Okay. So the next one is utilities. You'll see it's towards the back, and the tab is all the way to the right. So this is one that I just want to have a little discussion about because this is kind of a moving target right now. So the first line in the utilities is electricity. It was budgeted at $540,000. This is the electricity for all of our buildings. And then it's not just electricity, that's kind of a misnomer. It's electric and gas. It is basically our utility bill, our public service bill. So it is electric and gas for the year. This is all of the electric and gas on metered services for our stuff. Every building and all of those things in the town that are pump stations for the water utility, things like that. Well, actually, I take that back. Water utility is water utility. All of those things, the concession stand at Middlebush Park, things like that. So that's our electric bill. We're at the current annual is as of 2/8, it's at $459,000. We feel comfortable. We were when we did it earlier.
That wasn't said on mic. Could you?
No, that was for me. That was for my benefit, what she just said.
No, but I think it's worth repeating.
No, the former book that I had 2 months missing.
Right. I think it's good for the public to hear that it was $459,000, budgeting $500,000, but two.
No, 2 are not missing anymore. My old book, that's why it was a much lower number when she was talking to me.
I see.
So it was really meant to be whispered in my ear. Sweet nothings. It really amounted to nothing. No, that is the final bill, $459,000. So we're anticipating that $500,000 as opposed to $540 will be adequate to cover our electric and gas bills, even though I believe it was October of 2017, the BPU authorized a rate increase on gas for public service, the first time they had done so in 8 or 9 years. So we're probably going to see a little bit of an increase in our gas bill, but I think that as we do things like replace windows in this building, we'll become more energy efficient and lose less heat, so we'll use less gas. Okay? All right, so that's that one. The next one is gasoline and diesel. Now, there is some place where the prices are going up, and it's anticipated that the gas prices will continue to rise and hold steady for the year. So while we budgeted $350 last year and only spent $237,000, we're budgeting $350,000 again. Perhaps as we move forward with electric vehicles in the future, maybe as we get to 2019, we can take a hard look at the amount of gasoline we're purchasing, because we'll have more of the fleet with electric or hybrid vehicles, and certainly we'll be using less gasoline because of that.
So the question?
Yeah, sure.
So you expect an increase in diesel? Is that what I caught with all that?
Gasoline and diesel, yes.
Okay. But even with an increase, we've been, I'm only going back to 3 years you have stated here, budgeted quite a bit more percentage-wise. So I'm just wondering, with these electric cars and all these other things
like I said, I think
play.
we'll do an analysis of that after we have the vehicles.
No. I'm not talking we're going to save much money, but I'm saying, if anything, even with a slight increase, going to 350 just seems a lot. I mean, although we also had a lot of other things in place that we're being more efficient on our travels, unless there's things I'm not realizing, it just seems like
I'll bring it up at a
major
financial
fuel
oversight.
increased.
Bob, also, didn't the cost of diesel go up because of the increase, because the second stage of the tax increase went up?
Yeah, but all of them are expected to increase and continue increasing through the year. And we can discuss it at financial oversight.
Okay, it's just
okay. Street lighting is really what I wanted to talk about. This is an interesting kind of circumstance here. Our street light costs have been going down, but we've been increasing the number of streetlights that we have. So in discussions with Public Service, who we pay for all our streetlights, it's become apparent that one of the reasons why our cost for streetlights is going down is, on their own, Public Service has been replacing heads on streetlights with more efficient streetlights. But there's this other part of this that now kind of that kind of opened up some discussions about where do we go with the possibility of engaging Public Service in changing out light fixtures or light bulbs or whatever it might be, to make them even more efficient than the ones that are currently out there. We have a couple different kinds of street lights out there. I'm not going to bother you with bore you with the details, but there's a break point somewhere, and we're trying to see if we can find that break point as far as the costs associated with replacement of heads, or if there's a retrofit for the existing heads that would allow for LED. So that's kind of a work in progress. But one of the things that's been suggested, and I thought it was a good suggestion, was even if we see a decrease in the costs, which we've seen in street lighting, the difference between what we budget and what we paid in 2017, I would suggest that we leave that budgeted number alone, and if we can find a way that's efficient and will improve our efficiency, we can use that difference with Public Service to begin to swap out the bulbs or the fixtures, whatever they tell us it has to be. A street light is not as simple as like the light bulb in your lamp in your house. So if you want to switch from an incandescent bulb to an LED bulb, you just go out and spend, 4 or 5 times as much money on it, and you have an LED bulb that lasts 10 times. So the duration, the amount of time it lasts is 10 times an incandescent bulb, but it only costs like 4 times. Well, I don't know, and no one's been able to give me an answer as to whether or not that's the case. A sodium vapor light bulb for a street light costs about $40. An LED bulb giving that much light costs about $250. We'll have to see if there's a reason to do it, and if there is, I think that we'll begin to pursue it. So, I'm going to suggest that we leave it at 1.32 for this year, and we can look at it for next year.
What you're saying basically is to sink that money back into buying more LED bulbs, so the cost will go down.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if they're changing them,
They're not. They're not using LED fixtures. They're using whatever it is that they're using that have been more efficient than sodium vapor, but they're not the same as what we could do, which would be much more efficient, but cost a lot of money. I just give you so if you went from sodium vapor at $40 a bulb to the fluorescent type lights, and then maybe it's $30 a bulb, they're saving, or $50 a bulb, they're only costing them $10 a piece more. But I'm looking and saying, well, if we switch to LEDs, it's like $250 a bulb. Public service isn't going to do that on their own. So that means there's going to need to be some contribution from the municipality. And in the end, the cost savings that we'd realize from that would more than pay for the bulb over the life of the bulb or the fixture or whatever it is.
I understand what you're saying. I support that approach. I just get the sense that this will be figured out, and by the time it goes through committee, which it needs to, and get proper research, it'll be later in the year. And this is one of these things that if the $300,000 more than what we're spending is necessary, and we have a plan, that plan could go into play next year. It's just, this is one of these things where we're allocating $300,000 approximately for what we might make an investment for. And they disagree with the investment, but knowing how these things move time-wise, this could be in next year's budget.
Well, actually, I thought I'd have the money, I thought I had the answers for today. Public Service told me that they would have the answers for me by today. They didn't. So I disagree with you, Councilman, because
Public service is quick?
Well,
Public service is quick?
So for this particular application, the person who told me that they were going to give me the information by today were the people not at the low level. This was the Government Affairs Office. They said that they would have the answers for me. I don't have the answer today, so I said that I'm going to leave it in. But I'm about to whatever council wishes.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not faulting you. I know PSE&G. You could be waiting for 6 months and then another 6 months to figure out this, that, and the other. No fault of yours or this township, I want to be clear. But I don't see this as exactly what I was saying. The way I know these things move, anything to do with PSE&G, this doesn't belong to this year's budget, just my personal opinion.
So after the mayor's summit, I got this idea basically from the mayor's summit, and I called Sheridan at PSC&G, and that started the ball moving. And we've made a fair amount of progress. They called Carl Hulk, and we learned some of the technology. We've made quite a bit of. I take what your point, Councilman. They can be unreliable, but they've moved at dog's pace, not a horse's pace, but not a snail's pace either.
They've only had 2 weeks.
Yeah, so.
To give me an inventory of every street light in the town and what type of fixture is on every street light in the town. And they tried to get it to me for today because they knew I was having a budget hearing. I can't tell you, but they were responsive to it. They'd given all of the technical data to our Public Works Department already, and that was based on a phone call 2 weeks ago.
So we'll discuss it next week in financial oversight.
Fine.
Hopefully we'll have it, and if we don't have a good answer, we can get back
Yep.
to you, Councilman. And
I can put my glasses back on.
your questions, I'm motivated by the energy savings we could do, but your questions are valid. I appreciate your question.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm motivated by that also. This is everything is good in my mind, except the reality that the money would probably not end up actually being appropriated until the following year.
I believe you asked this before, so I apologize for the duplicate answer. The new fixtures, have they said, I know you said they're trying to use different bulbs and not necessarily LED. Do we know if PSE&G is installing in the new fixtures going in LED, or?
This is a statewide, so statewide, there's an ongoing project that's been going on for several years that Public Service has been replacing streetlights with more efficient streetlights.
Okay.
I mean, the best I can describe them is, so you have the orange-colored ones, those are sodium vapor, and they have a round glass dome underneath them.
Right.
All right, and then there's the ones that are a bluish-white color and are flat. Those are the more efficient ones. They're on New Brunswick Road by Somerset Run in that stretch of the curve. I mean, we have them sporadically around the town and sporadically throughout the service area of public service.
What's their technology, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. All right. So next one is going to be under the tab unclassified.
So we can talk about it.
So we can talk about it. It's no longer classified. It is unclassified now. And it's the tax appeal refund line. And we budgeted $500,000 last year, and we're budgeting $500,000 this year. And this one is so we also have a reserve for tax appeals. And what this money, the reason why it shows 500 in, 500 out, and each year it's totally expended, is the amount of money that we don't expend is simply moved to the reserve. Current on 12/31/17, the reserve was at $2,314,848. We're still not completely out of the woods with all of the tax appeals from 2009, 2010, but we're pretty close to it. So we don't see a need at this particular point to increase the line from where it was last year. The next one after that will be statutory expenses. Without going into any great detail, this is Social Security and pension payments. And so it's kind of obligatory for us to pay them. It's an increase of $17,000 from $5,712,749 to $5,729,749. And as I'm reminded by the finance officer, the $17,000 increase is the fire district, the shared service agreement. That's the proposed new employee.
So shouldn't part of this be coming out of water?
Shouldn't some of this, and it does. This is your general budget,
Okay.
not your water budget.
No, I understand that.
When we talked about the water budget last Monday, there were these statutory obligations included in the OE budget for the water utility. That portion of the budget is in the OE budget for water. They get their own.
And what happened to the state unemployment compensation?
We're not a member of the state unemployment compensation. Our unemployment is private, not state. So it was in the insurance.
Okay.
We don't participate in the state unemployment compensation. No, what am I saying? Yeah, we're self-insured. I was saying it sounded funny when I said we don't, but we're self-insured.
That's right. That makes
Yep.
sense.
And then the next one under that same tab is the reserve for uncollected taxes, the RUT. So without going into a very long tutorial on what the reserve for uncollected taxes is, it's not what it sounds like, and it's just a budgetary obligation of the state of New Jersey for us to have that $5 million that we can't spend. Okay. Interlocal agreements. That would be under the tab interlocal. And this is just what it sounds. This is the BOE transportation interlocal. It's $157,000. This is, when we talk about interlocals and shared services, it's money on both sides of the ledger here. So this is money spent somewhere else and money in, so there's money in on the revenue side of this that matches the money out in the budget. Senior transportation is money out and no money in. This isn't a shared service that we get, senior transportation is, I have that in here. Right. So this is, and actually we've discussed this senior transportation when the Recreation Department did their budget presentation last Monday. This is a $4,761 increase over $72,100. This is for the senior bus and for the county to provide the driver and the transportation services with our bus. The interlocal for the health department is the next page. I knew I felt like that. This is an increase of $12,833 over $641,694 to $654,527 for the contract with the Somerset County Health Department to provide our health services. Library. The library, yes, sir.
Just for everyone's clarification, when you say interlocal health, and we have that with the Somerset County, what exactly do you mean?
They're our health department, and we pay for them. We have no health department. Somerset County is our health department, and we have to pay for that service, which is we have an obligation to have a health department by law.
About
There you
2009.
go. When we moved them over, that sounds about right. It's been about 9 years now since we went and disbanded our own health department in lieu of the county providing our service. It's been about 9 years now.
Yeah, because Ken Daly was here.
Yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely here.
Been saving about $200,000, $250,000.
That's probably about the number when you do the math, but it's some
every year.
So.
We're saving money out of
I
it.
disagree, but okay.
Okay. All right. Next one, library. The library is an amount that we budget, but it's again an amount that we collect the same amount in the library tax. So the amount that will be paid to the library this year is $3,368,425, which is an increase of $290,049. Again, that's not really money coming from us; it's money collected by us and then paid to the library. The last.
Did they gave you their figure? They gave you their figure for the library?
No, they don't give us their figure. That number comes from a formula that, it's a state formula based on our assessed values.
Yes.
I'm trying to get the word out of my mouth here.
But it's averaged over years.
It's a weird formula that I've seen Mr. Hodgelick kind of do, but it's not one that I would sit down and try to tell you how it works. It is a state-mandated formula for the funding of a free public library through a library tax.
So if the library didn't spend it, then that's just sitting in their reserve?
No, it's their money. I mean, it's their, so they are not us. They're a free public library. They are not us. They are kind of like the fire district. We collect their tax money, and then we just write them a check. All right, but in this particular case, because the library tax and the amount of money collected is determined through a connection with our assessment value, there's this whole other law that tells us that we have to do this.
It's the same thing as the Board of Ed. We collect their money and give it to them, but whatever reason, we don't budget it this way.
Yeah, because so for this reason, I don't have an answer. Maybe we'll ask Mr. Hodgelick when he comes up to the table. But we collect taxes for the county, for the fire districts, and for the Board of Education, and we simply just collect their money and send them a check. But for the library, It has to be included in your budget, and I'm sure there's some statute that says it, and the formula for determining it is unlike the formula for the county fire district and BOE. That's their budget. And so they determine their budget, and then that amount is what is taxed. This is a set tax based on a formula.
In general, though, and I don't want to get into any more details, but in general, my understanding is when your entire town's assessed values of all its properties, commercials, residential, goes up, doesn't mean your taxes are going up, but your assessed values are going up. The formula will make it so that the amount that the town must give to the library goes up slightly. And there's a lot of other weird, I'm seeing Andy shake his head, so I just want to confirm for the public that as property values go up across the board, your library tax will go up slightly or accordingly.
Roughly 3.3 cents per hundred.
That, actually was going to mention that, but I wasn't sure. Is it 3.3 cents? So that's what that is. We can't change it, but it sits in their bank account.
Yeah, my worry relevant to what Mr. Chase said earlier was if property values do go down, library budget's going to take a hit.
Okay.
Just one little thing, and just so everyone knows, I'm asking these questions. I know some of the answers, but I ask the questions because some people don't know. They're watching TV, and they don't know why we did X, Y, and Z, so that's why I'm asking those questions to educate the people as they go along.
Okey doke. And that concludes all of the appropriations budgets for 2018. So now we're just going to have a very brief conversation about revenues, and Andy here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Again, and this will be a brief conversation about anticipated revenues. Obviously, most of our revenue comes from taxes. And this is just a discussion that we're going to have to kind of bring you up to speed. There's nothing in your book on it. So for those of you on financial oversight, there will be obviously some more in-depth discussions. But right now, all of the revenue reports are not complete because we haven't been able to get all the numbers. The annual financial statement just got done when?
Still draft form.
It's not done. So there you go. So everything is kind of a work in progress until we get done with all of those other things. But I asked Andy to come here tonight just to talk a little bit about what our anticipated revenues are for 2018. All you.
Evening, Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be here. So very quickly, in terms of your revenue situation in 2017, good news, you did really fairly well. At the end of the day, you had a plus to the variance on budgeted revenues versus realized. Miscellaneous revenues, they were close though. They were actually only over by $56,000 compared to what was budgeted. And that's a bit of a drop off from what you've seen in previous years. And the lion's share of that is actually in the construction code department area. You've seen a decrease in revenues from year to year, 16 to 17. Tax collections were strong. So actually you realized a excess of about $3 million over what was budgeted for taxes, and that includes obviously added taxes, which you picked up about $1.1 million in 17. They were down a little bit too as compared to 2016. In 2016, your added taxes were about $1.5 million. And again, this year at 17, we're about 1.1. So you see the combination of decline in revenues between construction code revenues and what you've realized in added taxes kind of gives you a trend where, things are actually, quite good in terms of your financial position. But going forward, you may see some weaknesses in terms of those regeneration numbers that you normally have gotten from added taxes, which obviously also from the construction code.
Could you clarify that term, added taxes? Because if somebody's listening out there, they're thinking all we do is add tax, so would you be more
what happens
specific?
during the course of the year, people actually, apply for building permits, and they'll have new construction or, say, rehabs on their existing homes, and the assessor will actually go out and put a value on that new construction or new values. And those get added onto the books, and there's actually bills sent out that the town collects. Now, in this particular circumstance, what happens is for the added taxes, the town does keep all that money, well, not all the money, the county gets their share, but the town keeps the school board's portion of that on the added taxes. That's why that is an improvement to your bottom line. But that's how it works. It's basically the assessor.
It's a partial year assessment is what it amounts to. So you have a vacant piece of land in January and it's assessed at $10,000, but then by, July, an entire house is built and now suddenly the $10,000 assessment is worth $250,000. Well, the $10,000 assessment doesn't last for the whole calendar year. There's an added assessment for the new improvement, and the new improvement is for a partial year. So that partial year assessment and that partial year collection, yes, goes to the Township of Franklin.
I'm making this face because I didn't realize the county got.
You thought, yeah, the county gets their part. The county gets their part. So where this is relevant is things like new housing developments, where there's a number of houses being built, and so you have a land value of maybe $70,000, but now you put a $400,000 house on it, and it's done, so we keep up with that through the course of the year. And then also, there's partial assessments done through various stages on commercial development as well. So a big building, you go from nothing to a partial shell, but then along the way, its value continues to increase and the added assessment goes up.
And part of that, I think, is as the different phases get approvals, because that's, I think, a way that they systematically track it, because if they're getting approved, then it's considered to this level, then they can go back.
It's great. What happens is that the assessor's office works in conjunction with the construction office, and there's a partnership, for lack of a better term, when they work together, and the assessors, the field assessors actually go out and do the inspections to make a determination at what level the added assessment should be.
And it is the fairest way.
It is.
For what, because at one time, years back, we researched all this, and it seemed like the fairest way. And I'm assuming we're doing a very good job at keeping up, because the better we do, the more revenue of that other tax we get.
Well, but in the end, the reason why it's fair is because it's fair to those people who have had improved properties for the entire calendar year. Everyone should shoulder their equal burden of taxes. So if someone has an improved property for 6 months of the year, they should pay the full assessed value tax for those 6 months, rather than have the burden of that tax fall on all of the rest of the people whose improvement was there for 12 months. It is fair.
I just wanted to be clear.
No, it's a good question, because I don't think people often understand what we mean by added taxes.
Right.
It's an added assessment is what it is.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and for example, in 17, the full value was $96 million that was added to the books, but the prorated value was about $50 million that was actually taxed, that you got the benefit of.
Okay.
And then just in terms of your bottom line in the current fund, it has improved over 2016. Right now, unaudited numbers, we have you at about $26 million for your fund balance, which is an improvement of about $1 million over the balance at 12/31/16. There were some one-time revenues that you got in. You got a FEMA reimbursement in for about $315,000, so it was unexpected, and that was due to the.
Does anyone remember a January 2016 blizzard? Well, Andy and I couldn't remember. I had to Google it to find out, because I could not remember for the life of me a 2016 blizzard. But apparently a state of emergency was declared, and we got a FEMA reimbursement on our overtime costs.
Oh, I remember it. I had been mayor for 26 days.
There you go. Okay. Well, I remember. It's like I had a hurricane for my first little stint as manager. You had a blizzard. So between the two of us,
Andy had a financial crisis. He had more to complain about it when they came on.
I couldn't for the life of me remember it.
Financial consultant.
I had to look it up. I couldn't remember it. Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago. It's only 2 years ago.
So like as I
remember Julie Court?
Oh, that was the blizzard. Okay, I do remember that. Yes.
Again, your financial position again is improved, but then a little bit of caution with respect to where the addeds and growth is headed. And just real quickly on the water, The water's still in very good shape. It did have a decline in revenues this year also, and I've seen this across the board. I guess terminology is a wet summer, and so just there were not as much billings in 17 as compared to previous years. But the fund balance is still very strong at $8.8 million in your water use. Are there any questions on your revenues at this point?
Yes, could I have just one question for clarification for everyone else? What is a fund balance?
Okay.
Because we're hoarding money somewhere, and they want to know
I
where to
wouldn't
go.
call it hoarding. It's your assets of the township, and you're maintaining them well. And it's you're a very high-rated town, and in order to maintain those high ratings, the rating agencies look to have high fund balances on hand. So it's not a hoarding situation. It's actually maintaining a very good, strong financial position. But at the end of the day, the town has assets, which would be its cash and receivables, and it has liabilities. And the bottom line, the balance between those two is your fund balance. And so in your current fund right now, your fund balance is approximately $26 million.
And it impacts our credit rating and bond rating, et cetera.
That's correct.
That
Absolutely.
really has a long-term effect on
Absolutely.
all our interest that we pay on borrowed money, et cetera.
That's correct.
Other questions?
Yes. I remember last year we had a budget for vacation jobs for some of
That's in the salary budget for both the water utility and public works, which we had done last Monday. But yes, there's the same amount is budgeted this year that was budgeted last year for seasonal employees in the water utility, open space, and public works.
Okay.
Equal amount to what was done last year. It was a very successful, and I think that they were very productive, and it was certainly a worthwhile program that we started last year.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I made sure of that, Councilman.
How did our hotel tax do?
It did well. He actually had a positive variance on that. You had budgeted 1.33, and they came in at 1,398,000.
Okay, how are we doing?
Sorry?
How did we do versus last
Versus
year?
16?
I don't have that right in front of me, Mayor, but I believe it was better because we budgeted $1.3 million, so.
$60,000 up. Kathy brought the old book.
Great. Any other questions?
I think that's it, Mr. Mayor. We've gone through all of the budget lines, and certainly if anyone has any questions, I think you all know how to find me. So feel free.
Financial oversight is Monday?
This upcoming Monday, yes. Our anticipation for what it's worth, Council, is that we would hope to be able to introduce a budget the first meeting of March. A lot of that will be, we haven't gotten our state aid figures. We're anticipating, as it has been for a number of years now, to be the exact same number as the previous year, but you really can't introduce a budget until the state officially releases the state aid numbers that are included in the budget. So as long as we get those numbers before the second Tuesday of March, we should be able to introduce the budget at that time.
That is when it will go up on the web.
Yes, that is when it will go up on the web, the introduced budget.
Then a budget.
Then it is a budget, correct.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Be well, Franklin.